All right, guys, welcome to the show. It is Thursday, September 29th, 2022. I like how I just said the year as if you don't know what year it is. Look, to be fair, sometimes I forget what year it is. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Forgetting the day of the week is normal as hell. Happens a lot. But there are times I forgot the year. There are times I forgot how old I am. Not even kidding. Not even kidding. So anyway, this is a long way of me trying to say, my brain doesn't work, so I'm just broadcasting that to all you guys. Anyway, today I have a phenomenal show for you. So we're going to lead with, I'm going to talk a little bit about how Newsmax is trying to whitewash the new Italian leader, Giorgia Meloni. There's so much to say about it, man. And in the process of doing that, they're going to argue that Hitler wasn't a fascist. All right, okay, all right. Well, that'll be a fun one to dive into. Then also, I have an update on the war between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. They are absolutely going at it. Now, to this point, it's been little stories here and there where it's like, here's what they really think of each other behind closed doors. So this is the first time we're seeing Team DeSantis is like, you really want to know what goes on behind closed doors? So we'll talk a lot about that. There's a lot to say about that. Then we have a Republican candidate who's running for governor in Pennsylvania. Just comes out and says, women should be tried for murder if they get an abortion. All right, dude, you want to run on that message? By all means, let me know how that works out for you. And Matt Gaetz decides to Twitch stream, and it doesn't go well, to say the least. I want to save the specifics on that until we get to that story. And there's mass protests are hitting 21 U.S. airports, so we'll talk about that as well. All right, without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and jump into it. So this is in Mediaite. They say Newsmax guest rewrites definition of fascist to defend Italy's new leader. Quote, Hitler was not a fascist. Hitler was a socialist. This is something that Steven Crowder has been saying for years. In fact, just the other day, he tweeted, Hitler was a leftist. I gotta tell you guys, I genuinely don't know if they are too stupid to know the reality or they're lying on purpose. Honestly, I lean towards they're too stupid to know the reality. Because look, when you're a partisan hack, when you're a rigid ideologue, you just don't accept that your side ever does anything wrong ever. And that's where that stems from. And so look, let's make a good comparison here. So I'm somebody who's on the left. Would I say that Joseph Stalin was on the left? The answer is yes. He was an authoritarian leftist. Now, look, my contention is that the bulk of his wrongness came from the authoritarianism, but there's no doubt that there was a leftist philosophy guiding him. And this is why, I'm more of what's called a libertarian leftist. I believe in social freedoms, freedom of the press. Personally, you got to do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But mix that with economic leftism, right? But I can admit, yeah, of course, are there historical figures who are both left-wing and monstrous? Yes. For whatever reason, there's some people on the right who cannot admit the obvious about fucking Adolf Hitler. So anyway, let's dive into this video. There's going to be a lot to say about it.
Author of Words for Warriors. Always great to have you back with us, Sam.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is a glass ceiling being shattered, a first time for women. Where are all the liberal feminists out there celebrating this milestone?
They're fully displaying their hypocrisy, and
yes. If you're on the left, obviously you should blindly support all women. Look, this is why. So let me get into my little spiel here, my little rant here, because I think this is important. I don't think anybody truly prioritizes identity politics above everything else policy-wise. I don't think anybody does it. Nobody does that. Why? Because there are plenty of examples you can give where like 95 to 98% of the feminists or left-leaning people in the country would not vote for the woman over the man. if you had a presidential election where it was Sarah Palin versus Bernie Sanders. People who are on the left, people who are feminists, people who say they believe in some semblance of identity politics are going to vote for Bernie Sanders over Sarah Palin. You know, and that's not like, aha, gotcha, hypocrite, stupid, because nobody ever claimed, first and foremost, that gender is the only thing that matters. You know, I'm sure you can find many people who believe in some semblance of identity politics who are like, well, fuck Margaret Thatcher. She was a terrible leader, right? So this isn't the got ya that you think it is. But more importantly, these guys are hypocrites because all of a sudden they trot out identity politics as if it's something to celebrate. When normally they act like, well, identity, why are we even talking about identity? They say stuff like, I don't see color. I don't see race. I don't see gender. I just see people and I judge them on the, you know, their character, on their merit. But now all of a sudden they're like, we got one. We got one. Let's do this. Let's talk about identity a lot now. Oh, it's such a dumb game that these people are playing. It's so stupid. Now, to be fair, there is one person who fell into their trap of like, you know, are you going to be consistent and support the fascist woman? It was Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was like, well, it's a woman, and so she broke the glass ceiling, so I guess that's good. But insofar as I could tell, she's like the only one, right? So, hey, by their own standard, Hillary, you're not a hypocrite. She's also a total idiot. But, I mean, all these, like, hypocrisy burns are so stupid. They're just so stupid. Let's talk about the specifics of what she believes in. Well, they're going to get to that, so wait for it.
I think it's a very sad thing because this is really an amazing, phenomenal day. Brava, brava, Giorgia Meloni. I'm so happy. I've been speaking Italian all morning. And frankly, what we see here is we don't see neo-fascism because that is not at all what this is. The Democrat Party has more in tune with the fascist agenda than anything conservative. And so we really...
You're going to need to flesh that one out for me. You're going to need to explain that one, dog. Okay, what is the Democratic agenda? I mean, you can go look at it. I mean, the leader of the party, who right now is Joe Biden, like it or dislike it, he's the leader of the party. Build Back Better was like his main focus, main goal. What was in Build Back Better? Elder care, universal pre-K, expanded Medicare, lower prescription drug prices, extended child tax credit. Is there any part of that where you think of it, you go, fascism? Even if I'm being as kind to them as possible, which I shouldn't be, right? They would argue, well, you guys categorize people by race and stuff. And so that's same thing that like Hitler did, bro. But even the most identitarian lefties, what do they say? Yeah, we should teach, like, critical race theory in school, which analyzes the history of the United States and the history of our legal system through the lens of race to point out, like, things aren't exactly equal, the law is not exactly, you know, justice is not exactly blind, you know? And look, there are parts of critical race theory I agree with, there's parts I definitely disagree with, but, like, hey, let's maybe teach that in our schools, or let's teach about the legacy and history of slavery in our schools. The idea, fascism! That's fascism! That's so stupid. That's so stupid. Now, she said something there about Giorgia Meloni. This is not neo-fascism. Why don't we listen to Giorgia Meloni talk about this? Because she might have some interesting things to say.
Giorgia a 19 ans, elle milite depuis 2 ans.
Hold on. So they're speaking Italian. I'm going to go ahead and read it for everybody, what's on the screen. Just for people who are listening on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, I'll read it so that you understand what they're saying. First in her school, when she's a militant, first in her school, when she blah, 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 she distributed leaflets and manifested against the left. Today, her political references are those of fascist Italy. Giorgia doesn't hide it. Me, I believe Mussolini was a good politician, by which I mean that everything he did for Italy. The mental gymnastics that you have to do to say, actually, she's not a fascist. She's saying I'm a fascist. She's like, Benito Mussolini was based. Everything he did for Italy. So how was that when him and Hitler became like buddy, and they were war partners along with Japan against the Allied powers? Allying with Hitler, is that something that you view as like, look, man, he was just helping Italy, dog. That's all he was doing. So at the very least, co-signing the Holocaust, co-signing genocide, to you, hey, that's based. He was just trying to do, Italy first or some shit. She doesn't represent fascism, even though she's like, I like fascism. Okay, all right, let's continue.
You ought to understand that. In fact, that's partly what my book, Words for Warriors, is about. I wrote it because they've changed the definition of fascism to mean populism, and that's not.
The point she's trying to make is these modern-day Republicans and this modern-day right-wing movement across the globe, they're just populists. They're not fascists. Populism is doing the popular will of the people. Virtually all of these right-wing parties and right-wing politicians, they are not doing that. The connecting tissue is the extreme social conservatism of these people. And then on the economic front, most of them are fake populists, where they head fake towards like social safety net programs, but ultimately they end up serving capital and capitalism. That's certainly the case in the U.S. with Donald Trump and all the politicians who are, in his mold. And look, in Europe, it might be a little different in the sense that maybe some of the economic stuff that the right-wing parties in Europe talk about, they mean more of it. But these countries already have like universal health care. They already have better social safety nets. So at the very least, if they continue those and don't, take a hatchet to them, well, then they're to the left of the Republican Party when it comes to economics. But when it comes to social issues, I mean, Giorgia Meloni is against gay marriage. She's even against gay adoption. Like, the main thrust of most of what she talks about is like social conservatism. Now, look, you want to say, hey, that's not as extreme as Hitler and Mussolini? Okay, yeah, granted. But don't act like it's not closer on the political spectrum to them than the left is. I mean, what are we really talking about here?
What fascism has everything to do with socialism. That's why Mussolini joined with Hitler during World War II. And Hitler was not a fascist. Hitler was a socialist. Mussolini was a fascist. And that is not at all what we're seeing in Italy today.
Yeah, Hitler was a socialist because he had the National Socialist Party. That's what the Nazi Party is. And North Korea is the Democratic People's Republic because it says Democratic People's Republic right in the name, right? They're not a dictatorship. They're the Democratic People's Republic, right? That's what it says. That's what it says. I can't, man. I can't. Now, at least she accurately points out Benito Mussolini is a fascist. Why did she admit that? Because he literally came up with fascism. He's the dude. He's the guy who founded it. So she can't wiggle out of. But Hitler, she thinks, I could wiggle out of this. He's not a fascist. He's a total socialist, bro. Fascism. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement. By the way, check with Giorgia Meloni. So far, right? Characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation and race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. Fascism rose to prominence in the early 20th century. The first fascist movements emerged in Italy during World War I, before spreading to other European countries, most notably Germany. Fascism also had adherents outside of Europe, opposed to anarchism, democracy, pluralism, liberalism, socialism, and Marxism. Fascism is placed on the far right wing within the traditional left-right spectrum. I mean, when you get to the point where you are denying very basic definitions, you lost. You lost. Why even bother? Why even bother? And the answer is simple, because they kind of want to run interference for Giorgia Meloni. They kind of want to say, no, they don't kind of want to say it, they just say it, oh, she's not a fascist, even though she literally praises fascists, even though, the platform that she ran on was, at the very least, extremely socially conservative and regressive. Hitler was a socialist. That would have been some news to the socialists, communists, and anarchists that he was putting in death camps and killing. I'm sure as they were being shoved into the gas chamber, they were like, I bet this guy agrees with us. He's our ally, right? Right? Oh, man. Look, what's amazing to me is that as time has gone by, the far right is really, they've ripped off the mask in many ways, right? Like, they are now electing people who are like, I am pro-fascism. So, at least in the past, if somebody had some fascist tendencies or sympathies or leanings, they would, there wouldn't be a video of them from the 1990s where they're like, I like fascism, or I'm pro-Hitler, right? Now we're at the point where that is happening. And you still have people running interference for them. And it makes you wonder, why are you doing it? Is it because you kind of also are a fascist? Is that why? I mean, I want to be kind. I want to steel man your arguments. I don't want to straw man them, but I'm having a hard time of finding any explanation for this. That isn't that. So, all right, there you go. Take her at her word when she says what she believes. I certainly will. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.